my little outdoor entertaining area. I've had a bunch of outings on this summer. I loved this arrangement that I grabbed from my local nursery. It just looks so stunning, and it's played its way through the whole season. It looks super, super nice all throughout. I got so many compliments on it, and it still looks great. I'm gonna try to winter it over, see if I can bring it through. The grass here, I love the grass. I love this purple, like feathery grass here, and it just overlooks the garden. It looks just, I love it. I couldn't have asked for a better season. I have my cannas growing up here, as well as my sweet potato vines, my sage, all those things that I'm going to use later on in the fall. And this fall color palette, which looked beautiful in the springtime, has also blossomed beautifully into the fall. It's going to look so great. I might get a little cabbage to stick in there, because you know me, I love me a little mini cabbage. So if I can find little tiny ones, I can see myself putting one there and one there, but I do love the look of this regardless. Tucked in here as well are all my other herbs throughout the season. We made lots of mint lemonades at the bakery and different herbaceous things. I'm not much of a coffee person, but I love teas and artisanal lemonades and all that, so I was making some drinks with those, and I really appreciate them being in there. The sage here is gonna be great in the fall with my like pumpkin raviolis and pumpkin breads and different, I want to make like focaccia bread and all that with just all those different herbs in there. So I think they play really nicely into my arrangements right now, and at the very end of the season I'll snip them, dry them, you know, cure them, do all. I gotta come through, I gotta trim up my bay plant. I've been waiting all year for this because it does not usually winter over for me super duper great. I barely put it out with like 3 little leaves left on it, but it looks great at the end of the summer, so I'm gonna try to winter it over again and water it all the time. The leaves look pretty darn good. They look pretty healthy. I'm gonna trim them off, let them branch out even more, and get that all preserved inside, because bay leaves in soup and all that. Bay leaves are the secret to my cooking 90% of the time. I've been using those, and I'm gonna start using those in cut flower arrangements at the shop. Same with my red head coleus here. It's gotten huge. This was only like 4 or 5 plants, I think, were planted around this huge, what do I call it here, a hydrangea, which has done great, and I trimmed it back a little bit because I wanted some flower arrangements for the shop for 4th of July. These are more of that mahogany splendor, as well as my Prince Tut grasses that got huge, and I used those in arrangements at the bakery, and that's what I planted this for, was so that people could get some, you know, arrangements from farm to table. These were out here as little teeny tiny seedlings way back in the springtime, and now they're just flourishing. They're doing great. So I love my fall decoration. My mom got me a flag to put in my garden there, but a pumpkin growing here, forgot to mention that. A bunch of my house plants I've thrown outside. Anything that had like mites and all sorts of issues, I was like, well, if you can survive outside, we'll deal with you in the spring or in the fall. So I gotta pull these in eventually. These are my house plants. I trimmed back a bunch of my plants and just left them out here, and they got a little sunburnt, but I trimmed off those leaves, and we're growing back again. So my pumpkin, this is the ADHD in me. The pumpkin here, this was actually some of the compost that I made in my compost bin over there didn't fully compost. So all it did was leave me with a couple of seeds from last year's crops and things that I threw into the compost bin. So I started getting random plants popping up, and I was like, well, I can't see killing them. They're trying to grow, so I let them grow. So there's some tomato plants that are just kind of spilling over the sides and even producing little teeny tiny tomatoes if you look kind of close down in here. So, you know, I figured let them stay. Same with the pumpkin here, just kind of growing along, vining out, looking kind of cool, and keeping the ground covered and weeds not growing. So what the heck, why not? Here is my fall kind of arrangements here. I cut back a bunch of my summer pots that I had geraniums, or not geraniums, citronella. Citronella, keep the buggies away. Now I've added in a cabbage, some mums, but it's mostly all the stuff from before. Potato vines were in there. These like red spikes in the back here were in here. I let my mint grow wild because the bees loved hanging out on these little flowers here, so I let them have it. I hooked up my cabbages here into my drip irrigation. I got to test that out one more time because I think it's giving me some trouble. But my sweet potato vines, I've been just kind of trimming up. This area got huge. First of all, also, beautiful night. Absolutely beautiful night out. This area right here was all my herbs. I let them grow wild. I've collected them a bunch of times, done some full sets of drying all these different herbs in here. I got to do it one more time, get some fresh stuff in there. It's just like the last bit of the summer in here. Let a lot of things go to seed so the bees could enjoy them. These onions back here are a form of onions. They're living their best life. I didn't even plant these, so I love that. But everything really kind of took off this year. It worked out really nice. I had my compost from my compost guys over there. They collect all of our compost, and then they take it to a processing facility and get it back in beautiful soil. And I top dressed my beds at the beginning of the season and had some different fertilizers and things like that in there that I tossed in, all organic stuff, and they really did a pretty good job this year. Everything looks pretty good. It's starting to really yield me some stuff. I really got to get out here and pick these jalapenos. They are getting big and spicy, so I got to work on that next. I got to bring down a basket. But yeah, that's my garden fall 2023. And this little cutting that I pulled off of the rose last year, it's like a branch snapped off, and I just stuck it in the ground and it grew out up, and I'm just gonna put it in the ground again. Full circle. My roses have been growing up and over the top of this arbor here, and I've been kind of weaving them through the fence and tying them off in certain areas, but they have flourished. They really look nice. They are I think they're called the At Last rose from David Austin, and they're working their way up. They made a lot of progress from last year to this year. They were like right down there where that like little stake is. Like that stake was like the top of the plant last season, and now they're way up, about halfway, if not 3/4 of the way up, and in already weaving through. I've been trying to feed it back and forth. So I'm sure next year they're gonna at least reach the top. And that's only been like, that'll be 3 years, I guess. I put them in at the end of the season, my first year in my house, and now I've had one full summer. So I love the roses, and they look so big and beautiful. They did get a lot of June bug damage, not as much as I think there could have been, but I could have been better about trying to. I was picking off June bugs and throwing them into a jar of soapy water and killing them all season long. But the trick is trying to get a lot of established growth before that time comes, so that there's more for them, not to feast on, but for the plant to survive through. So that was my main focus this year, not trying to get roses off of it, but I love it. Another giant pile of stuff I have to deal with. My cut flowers here, they look super good. They have been really making a lot of area for the bees to kind of come and play around on. They're loving it. They're loving all the nectar and pollen they're grabbing out of all this flowers and foliage and all that. So I have been living for this season. I have the bees over here. I don't know if you can see them. The bees, let me see if I can zoom in even more. The bees are bearding on the outside because it's so hot out. Even though we are mid-September, it's probably got to be 85, 90 degrees out. But yeah, the bees have been living for that area. Once I turned them around, they were nasty at the beginning of the season, and they've really mellowed out. But they love this area. All the greenery and the extra filler flowers that I use for work are in here. The little tiny area over here that I have my drip irrigation set up on, there's been a little leak that comes out of it. It's just enough to like give the bees some water, so they have been like kind of congregating over there and hanging out all by that wooded, kind of grassy area. So I just leave it for a little oasis for them to get away from the sun and have a little drink. So this area here was okay this season. It definitely got away with the grass and all that just overgrow way too fast, and I can't keep track of it. What I'm thinking of doing next year is planting some of this taller stuff down here so that I can keep this area a little bit more clear, and I can maybe mulch in between it to keep the weeds down and all that kind of stuff. So I might cardboard around it this year because that worked for me last year, and just dig little holes and put my stuff in there. But I'm going to switch all these snapdragons that were a little bit more delicate up into these boxes in rows and rows all packed in there, and do that instead. So I learned that for next year. My tomatoes have seen their day. They've come and gone. It was okay for tomatoes this year with like the weather. It was so rainy and not, it took forever for them to ripen and yada yada. The grass has also gotten away from me in my garden here since I have the bees literally right here. I can't really spray a lot down here, so I have all natural stuff that I use and things that are very bee safe specifically that I looked up and researched extensively. But the grass kind of got away with me. I don't really care. I don't really care. I think it adds some charm to it. I mean, is it my preferred method? No. I'll try to stay more on top of it next year, but do I really care? Am I going to lose sleep? No. So I just pile stuff up on it. I'm still lazy anyway, so I got to get my wheelbarrow and I got to clear that out. The cut flowers over here. Oh, wait, before I even get to that, I have my little box here, I had a little pumpkin. One tiny little pumpkin, that was it. This used to be summer squash and zucchini, and I'll switch. I had summer squash on this side, zucchini on that side. I'll switch to have zucchini on this side because it was really strong with the sun that came up over here, and this side not as well. So we'll change that up for next year. But in the boxes here, I planted carrots all along here, and I planted radishes and some like greens, like mesclun greens and spinach and all that kind of stuff. So I literally just tossed those in. I scuffed up the dirt a little bit and tossed them in and scuffed it back, and that was it. And so we're gonna see if they grow. The loofahs are giant. I've lost count of how many there are. They're the same color. They're like a little scavenger hunt. They're everywhere. They're here, over there, right here. Oh, I didn't even notice. Oh, and the one back there. Ooh, they're spooky. They're like little snakes. But yeah, so they're all in there. They're tucked away. So I'm excited to have all those dry out and become loofah sponges, which I would have bet my house came from the sea, but they don't. They're grown. So I learned that for myself last year. They have taken over. Right here was all of my cucumbers, which the cucumbers are they were great. They were so many this season, and I loved all of my relish making and all that. But I had a lot of cucumbers, and they really worked this year because of all the rain and all that. My eggplants here are egg planting. They're making me little eggplants, and I love that. I'm gonna make some eggplant parm with those. My nasturtiums kept a lot of the bugs away. Every once in a while they would get really overgrown, and I'd trim them way back, and they would always grow back. I'll plant them again. My sunflower got absolutely gigantic. It's got to be 15 something odd feet. It's huge. It's huge. The loofahs have attached to it to help it like keep standing. They're working in harmony here. I'm living for it. This area was garlic at the end of the season, but I let it go like extra far. So I let the loofahs, oh my gosh, the loofahs over my arbors here. The loofahs have taken over the area that the garlic was in. I think I'll switch that up to maybe be tomatoes next year, and tomatoes in this box, and do garlic and cucumbers in those boxes over there. But I'm really living for these loofahs this year. My corn like never ever takes, but that's okay. I'm not in it for the corn. I'm really in it for the corn stalks, and I only got like 2 or 3 of them, but they have little like tiny bits there. I think when I bunch them all together, I just usually like to wrap it around my I like to wrap it around my lamppost, and I have just enough to do so. The one thing I'm absolutely going to plant again, and I feel like I even want to still plant in this box, even though I don't know, I got to look into like crop rotation stuff, the peppers that I grow. So I have all different kinds in here, as well as some weeds that I just got to pull out. Jalapenos, habaneros, bell peppers, like, you know, some of these really good looking peppers in here. Nice and homegrown. I want to cut some up. I want to use them. I want to make some veggie cream cheese at the bakery. These jalapenos are incredibly hot. I've had it from multiple people, and they have said it is one of the spiciest jalapenos they've had in a bit. So I've been playing with those a little bit, but I want to make jalapeno cornbread at the bakery. I really can't wait for that. Then I have more of this. I forget what it's called. Shiso or I'll have to look it up afterwards. But I love this texture in my garden. I liked it in cut flowers. I feel like it really got droopy really fast unless I got it in water immediately. So I don't really like giving those away in a flower arrangement. So I've been using them for myself. You can eat it and use it. So I just haven't found too many recipes that I've been using with that in it this season. But these marigolds, I'm living for them. They are plopping out, and I every once in a while will go through and just pop my little crispy ones off there, and I just throw them in, hoping that they'll maybe reseed. And I'll let some of them dry out at the very end of the season, but oh my god, I love the look of this. Eucalyptus looks super healthy, and the yarrow here looks like it's gonna work really nice for next year. Like, just these plumes alone are really beautiful. Just this box looks very hardy. And then I have just different textures for my cut flowers that I sell at the bakery. The like droopy texture here. I love it. I love it. And then the bright spiky ones, you know, in all the arrangements you gotta have a little bit of that, but like the texture alone, like look at that. That's such a fun thing to have an arrangement. Straw flowers, that crispiness. You know what I mean? So I have to cut a couple of these down. I got to get some of these inside and drying upside down because I want to add them into my garlic and onions that I just like cured and just tied up, and they look really nice in my pantry. But I would love to open the door and it to have a little bit of decoration, a little flair. Why not? So I got these also because I really wanted to make crafts with them. So you know, they branched out a lot. I feel like I could trim them up even more next time to get them branch out sooner. But I love them, and they're crispy flowers, and when I dry them, they're gonna look so good. This cut flower garden area worked really well this year. I don't know what improvements I would make on it next year. I feel like I'd switch it a little bit. Maybe play around with like placement of like tall things. Maybe try to get this on like the sunnier side and do all that a little sooner. But I like this a lot. It worked out pretty nice. This is what my garden looks like at the end of the season, more or less. I have my cut flower area over here, my zinnias, as well as my mahogany splendor foliage here. I absolutely adored this season. It got so big. I planted a lot of it because I thought it was really nice and I want to use it in cut arrangements. I think I'll tone back on it a little bit next year, but I love it. I have been out here picking peppers. Peter's been picking a pack of peppers. You get it. And I just keep finding them in all different varieties. I love it though.